You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today's guests are a stellar trio. To welcome in, oh my God, at last, spring. In the Northern Hemisphere, that is, where some of us were beginning to despair of winter ever ending this year. The trio starts off with our irrepressible Middle East correspondent, journalist, wonderful troublemaker, and now book author, Mona Eltahawy, who'll report on, good God, the Middle East. Then we visit with the electrifying singer-songwriter, Janita. We learn about her new breakthrough album, and we get to hear the world premiere of one of her stunning new songs that take feminist music, believe me, to a whole new level. Last, but in her case never ever least, Gloria Steinem returns to the program full of news about her latest project. But first, we need to look inside the headlines. Since the headlines this week have been still fulminating over Hillary, and the emails, oh my God, there were some emails lost. Then going inside the headlines means we're doing the same thing. Just what we did last week and then some. A couple of points. First of all, this is somebody who is aware of her place in history. So I don't think anything's lost. I think it's been saved. I think it will surface. She says she wants it to surface. But this is somebody who, knows who she is and knows the importance of a historical record. Second of all, a story has surfaced about lost Bush White House emails from private accounts, by the way, which triggered a media shrug. Media Matters came out with the story that as many as 5 million emails covering a 2-year span had been lost. This was in a response to congressional demands for emails in connection with congressional investigation into the partisan firing of 8 U.S. attorneys. And the White House announced that, whoops, we've lost 5 million emails, the Bush White House. So the emails had been run through private accounts controlled not by a person, but by the Republican National Committee, and they were only supposed to be used for dealing with non-administration political campaign work to avoid violating ethics laws. But congressional investigators already had evidence that private emails had been used for government business, including to discuss the firing of one of the U.S. attorneys. The RNC accounts were used by 22 White House staffers, including then Deputy Chief of Staff Karl Rove, one of our favorite people, who apparently used his RNC email for 95% of his communications. The White House email story broke on a Wednesday, but that Sunday's Meet the Press, Face the Nation, and of course Fox News Sunday, none of them covered the topic of millions of missing White House emails. It didn't even come up. ABC's This Week did touch on it. By comparison, not only did every network Sunday news show this week cover the story about former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's emails, but they were drowning in commentary. Meet the Press, Face the Nation, This Week, and of course Fox News Sunday all featured and focused on saturation coverage of these emails. By the way, the New York Times, in terms of the Bush emails, here's the entirety of the newspaper's commentary. It was in an editorial, and it was 4 lines. Last week, the Republican National Committee threw up another roadblock, claiming it had lost 4 years' worth of email messages by Karl Rove sent on a Republican Party account. Those messages, officials admitted, could include some about the United States attorneys. It is virtually impossible to erase email messages fully, and the claims that they are gone are not credible, period. As for coverage by then Fox News co-host Fred Barnes, he said, and I quote, deleted emails. Who cares? ? Close quote. So if you were doubting that a double standard is in play, or worrying that people think, oh, those feminists always just say double standard, we say so because we see it. And you have to see it, not necessarily in this case to be it, but to believe it. Now it's time for our first guest. Mona Eltahawy is a journalist and a phenomenon. She's a force majeure. She had both her arms broken and was sexually assaulted as she was covering and participating in the Tahrir Square first revolution liberation in Egypt, all those happy times ago before the revolution went sad and bad. She has just come out with a new book called Headscarves and Hymens, Why the Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution, and she is Women's Media Center Live correspondent for the Middle East. So welcome back to the program, Mona. Our Middle East correspondent, the most distinguished Middle East correspondent I can imagine, and also the liveliest. Tell us some good news maybe about your region, but if not that, just the inside news.
Well, Robin, thank you for having me back on your show. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of good news that I can share with you. It's quite a difficult time in the region right now. But I think it's important to recognize that it's especially during these difficult times that we must point out that all we're doing essentially in the region is just watching men fight other men for power. We're watching men kill other men for power. We're watching men imprison other men for power. We're watching men reshuffle other men in cabinet positions for power. So I've been pointing out lately, especially because we've just said goodbye to International Women's Day again, that unless we start looking at my part of the world as more than just men fighting men for power, nothing will change. Because especially since the revolutions began in Tunisia in 2010, it's just been replacing one man with another. And the current dilemma, I think our biggest dilemma, is that we haven't been able to come up with an alternative to military rule and Islamists. And they're essentially, we've spoken about this before, they're essentially two sides of one coin. Right. Authoritarianism, misogyny, and patriarchy. Right. So what I have been trying to focus people's attention on is, unless we have this social sexual revolution that essentially looks at a social change that begins from the ground up and that expands the lens to more than just men fighting men for power, and that redefines terrorism, because right now in Egypt, our current regime, led by a man I call a fascist dictator, which is Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is our current military ruler, he is stuck on this kind of stale Bush language war on terror. And we have been having a lot of explosions in Cairo lately. And
he's like the other side of ISIL, isn't he? Well, I mean, they fit perfectly.
This is the thing, exactly. And, and even, the acronyms and the way that you spell their names, he's called Sisi, they're called ISIS.
Yeah. I had not thought of that.
Although I don't like to call them ISIS because I'd like to, ISIS is a goddess.
Exactly. I keep calling them anything but ISIS, yes.
In the Middle East, we call them Daesh, which is the acronym for their name in Arabic, because they don't like to be called that.
Oh, well, let's start calling them that.
Daesh. So the way that I portray what Sisi is doing is that he's stuck in what he calls a war on terror. But what is terrorism in the way that he defines it? It's men fighting other men for power. And unless we begin to look at things like female genital mutilation, domestic violence, marital rape, and street sexual harassment as a form of terrorism, we will never really be able to fight terrorism of any kind. So the kind of work that I'm focusing on is the work that expands the definition of terrorism and makes it the kind of terrorism that nobody wants to recognize, that happens on a daily basis. And that, for me, unless we begin to define terrorism as such, we're just going to continue to see these men playing musical chairs at our expense. Because, it's quite stunning, because in the space of just 1 week in Cairo, just before I flew out to New York, for example, we had about 3 or 4 explosions. So I could actually tell you we've had 4 explosions in Cairo, 2 of which I heard in my parents' neighborhood, actually physically heard, because I happened to be there that night. I could also tell you how many people were tortured to death at a police station in a northern neighborhood in Cairo that has become notorious for torture that is practiced upon political Islamists and their supporters. I could tell you how many ministers we've moved in a cabinet reshuffle. I could tell you all these things because those are the things that are reported as important. Right. But I can't tell you something that affects 91% of Egyptian women. 91% of women between the age of 15 to 49 in Egypt have had their genitals cut. Perfectly healthy parts of their body. 99.3% of girls and women in Egypt experience street sexual harassment on a daily basis. domestic violence is so common and so accepted in Egypt that women expect to be beaten for burning their dinner, for speaking to a strange man. And marital rape is considered completely acceptable. All of this is a daily terrorizing of girls and women in Egypt, yet none of that makes the headlines. The headlines is men fighting men. Well, there was a great teachable moment in 2013 or end of 2012 when we'd been under curfew in many provinces throughout Egypt for about 4 months, because on August 14th, the Sisi regime massacred between 800 to 1,000 people in the space of 2 or 3 hours, Muslim Brotherhood supporters. This is the worst single modern massacre in Egyptian history, and worse than Tiananmen Square, according to Human Rights Watch. This happened in a space of 2 or 3 hours on August 14th, after which we were put under curfew for 3 or 4 months. By the end of that curfew, many people were chafing at the bit, understandably so, because they were sick and tired of being at home. Granted, the curfew was shrunk over time, but you still had to be home between, I think it was
controlling
midnight
public
to 6
space.
in the morning.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we knew that the curfew was about to be lifted, I would go on social media and tell people, so, the daddy, the father of our nation, Sisi, is about to lift our curfew, and what a wonderful thing. But my message to boys and men out there is, are you aware that the fathers of every family in Egypt impose a curfew of their own on girls and women? Your girlfriends have a curfew, your sisters have a curfew, many of the women in your life have a curfew.
Very smart.
What do you think of that
to
curfew?
point out, you use it as a metaphor and point out that it's very smart.
So it's like daddy outside and daddy inside.
Did they make the connections when you made that for them?
Hell no.
Yeah, well.
Most of them just laughed and said to me, yeah, but that's different. And I said, how is it different?
Always a great response.
Right. And it was different because we're doing it for your own good.
Oh, yeah.
We're protecting you. And so then I would ask them, well, who are you protecting us from?
Sisi thinks the same thing. Do they not know that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's this patriarch who's protecting us. No, but the irony is then I've got boys and men telling me, we're protecting you. And then I would say, who are you protecting me from? And they're saying other boys and men.
Yes.
So and then I would say, well, then surely we should put boys and men on curfew because you guys are dangerous. And then they would just laugh and stop the conversation.
Yes, of course.
So you have to take it to absurd lengths and make them realize that what they're saying is just ridiculous.
What do you think will happen? Is this completely a crazy question? I mean, whatever will happen will take time, a lot of time, because the spasms that are shaking the region are huge, the world for that matter. And I tend to think, this is my craziness, but I tend to think, using the simile of a battered woman, that the most dangerous time for a battered woman is when she decides to leave. That is when he moves to kill. And I think that there is a sense, certainly in this country, with the rise of the Tea Party and the ultra-right, and I think it's worldwide in a lot of places. I think that there is a sense, unknowing, semi-conscious, subconscious in the patriarchy, that women are about to leave.
Yes.
Both metaphorically and figuratively and literally, and that this is not just backlash, but this is the patriarchy rising in reaction to that. So it's a tremendously dangerous period. But the good news is that women are, in fact, moving. In the region, it's just so, all of the work that I've seen women in the region do for decades now seems to me being swept away or made invisible or backburnered or made irrelevant. It's difficult not to despair. Is there anything happening that we should know about to support, to hang on to, or is it just an impossible period?
It is really miserable in the region right now. There's, anyone would be delusional to say otherwise.
Yeah.
But I am delusional in a way. I'm delusional with optimism. I call myself a tenacious optimist because we can't afford anything but optimism.
That's why I love you. Yes.
I love you too, Robin. We don't have anything but optimism at our disposal right now. And you're absolutely right when you say that this is a moment when the patriarchy realizes that women have basically broken down the doors. This is why we're hearing more about street sexual harassment, because men recognize that we have intentionally invaded their public space. Yeah. We're hearing, men in many countries panic because they recognize that they're losing control of women. Now, I travel back and forth, as you know, between Egypt and the US, and I'm an Egyptian American, and I always connect the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East with the Christian Brotherhood here in the United States.
Well, they're the same
They do
folks.
exactly
with
the
just-
same.
Yeah.
And there is a reason, Robin, that we have not seen a United Nations Women's Conference since Beijing. I went to Beijing exactly 20 years ago,
Right.
at which we had, the Beijing platform. If we had had any conferences since, we know that the patriarchy and the unholy alliance between the Vatican, the religious, the conservative Catholic countries, the conservative Muslim countries, and the Christian coalition in this country would have destroyed what we achieved in Beijing.
They tried to destroy it pre-Beijing, I mean, they
Population
suddenly forgot about the Crusades, and they were just buddies.
Right? All of a sudden.
Buddies. Yeah.
Because they recognize, and this, this has become my motto now, because they're all obsessed with our vaginas, and I always tell them, stay out of my vagina unless I want you in there. I'm going to get this on a t-shirt, because this is truly what unites them. They're
It's very
obsessed
true. No, it's
with
very
controlling
true. It's
our
very
sexuality. And, this is not new. This is not something that, I'm inventing. So I think they recognize that they are losing control of us, and it is a very dangerous time. But that's exactly what keeps me tenaciously optimistic, because I think we are going to reach a point where, first of all, we're just 4 years into the revolution. No revolution
right.
has succeeded after just 4 years.
God,
We're
no.
trying to undo years of damage. I often, the way I describe Egypt, and you can use this analogy for the entire region, imagine a house where all the windows and doors have been locked tight for 60 years. And all of a sudden you open one of the windows. The stench that is coming out of that house is unbearable.
Huge.
And your immediate, the temptation is to just close the window and say, keep it all locked up because I can't stand the smell.
No, you can't.
We have to stand in the middle of this stench and open all the windows and the doors.
That's right.
Until we air it all out. And that's what we're doing. We have to air it all out. So I hear of these, small, that I started this women's support group.
I know.
We've been on a bit of a break, but we're about to revive it. But since I've met with the young women who want to revive the group, they've told me of things like women who get together to do group counseling, women who get together to do self-defense classes, women who get together to do art and dance therapy.
Oh, it's beautiful and so gutsy.
I think the realization now is that survival is the biggest form of resistance. Just to survive.
Yes, it is. It is.
And to
my dear.
find joy in the middle of this misery is the best kind of resistance.
Well,
so I think this is it.
I think that's beautiful, and I think it's also very true. And speaking of joy, take a minute or so. We've only got a minute or so, but take a minute or so and talk about the book, which is soon about to be out. Finally, Headscarves and Hymens, best title ever, ever, most audacious title ever, and it's coming out
on April the 21st online, and in the UK in May, and other parts of Europe in, I think, September onwards. And just yesterday, it got sold to Turkey. So we're slowly moving into the
Way
Middle
to
East.
go! Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. So what I have read it. It's an absolutely wonderful, audacious book. I would expect nothing less from you, and I congratulate you.
Thank you, Robin.
And thank you also for being with us again on Women's Media Center Live.
My pleasure.
It's time for a break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be right back with a singer-songwriter whose voice is unique and utterly her own, yet I bet you'll recognize it as your own too. I did. Janita in just a minute, so don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. The buzz and anticipation surrounding the new album from my next guest, that buzz has been quite something. Her name is Janita. It's spelled Janita, but it's pronounced as if it were a Y, Janita. She's a Brooklyn-based singer-songwriter. She's had other records, but this one, everybody seems to feel, is a major breakthrough. So we are getting to hear the world premiere of one of the songs, first time ever on radio. So here is Janita. Janita, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Robin. It's great to be here.
Well, this is a remarkable record. I mean, it is, the lyrics are unforgettable. The melodies are totally unforgettable. They get into your head and, and there's no way around them. They're just stunning. And
Thank you.
There's I was trying to think of how way to describe it. There's a savage elegance to this album that I've never really encountered before. It's quite wonderful. Let's start with the title. Didn't You, My Dear, which is unusual, provocative, very interesting. Tell us about the title.
So this record and this moment is really a culmination of having to fight through so many things to get here. And I'm in a really happy place. I feel like I'm in a victorious place in my career right now. So, the record's not even out and I'm feeling victorious already. So that's a pretty good place to be as an artist. But I've always known that I could get here. And I've always known that I have this record inside of me, or that I have this music and these lyrics inside of me. And the title of the record, I guess, is something of a playful smack to those who also knew that I'd get here, but didn't really make it very easy, if you know what I mean.
They tried to hide it from you, or certainly didn't let you in on the secret.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes in other people's best interest not to empower others.
Yeah, you've had other records and successes before, but this is a breakthrough. This is a whole new terrain for you, isn't it?
That's what it feels like. Yeah, I wrote all the songs myself for the very first time, and I'm playing guitar and piano and even percussion on this record for the first time. So there's a lot of firsts for me. I started my career when I was 13, and when you're that age, you don't really have a sense of who you are as an artist yet, and you end up getting into dynamics with people where people in the industry kind of end up running the game, running the show. And for me, for example, they were putting me in fishnet stockings at 13 years old. So I was doing things that were not of my choosing at that age.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, I think you know about this, having been a child star yourself.
Yeah.
So I've really fought to get to a place where I'm calling the shots myself, and it's a very gratifying place for me to be at right now, because I'm surely not being controlled by anyone at this point anymore, and I have a very positive, healthy record label, ECR Music Group, that I'm working with.
I congratulate you, because I know firsthand how difficult it is to come into one's own when one has been performing and yet even worse, successfully performing when very young, and then to leave that behind, to shed that skin and emerge as an artist that one suspected one always might be, or at least try to be, come hell or high water, is a very, very hard path. I have enormous respect for people who have forged that path, because it doesn't exist. You can't walk it. You have to create it as you go.
Because it's individual. It's different for everybody. There's no handbook on how to do it. You really have to change the way you think.
Exactly.
In order to get there.
No map. Absolutely no map. Yeah. I'm going to say this again later, but I just want to know that people can get their pencils out. The record is actually going to be released on the 31st of March, but it's up now for pre-order at iTunes. You can go to itunes.com/Janita, but it is spelled with a J, so it's Janita, but it's pronounced Janita. And there's a show coming up, isn't there?
There sure is.
On the 26th of March at Webster Hall in New York City.
That is right. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Well, I think a whole lot of women, and I hope some men too, but I know about the women, are going to identify a lot with these songs, with the process in them, with the fight back, with the rage, with the emergence.
I was trying to Sony at a very young age here in the States, in New York, and it actually put me on this artist development course where they told me how to sit and walk, and in a certain way, which was good enough for an artist to walk. You know what I mean? And they taught me how to sit on a couch for interviews. Yeah. When yeah, the way that you cross your legs and how long you make your legs look, as you're sitting.
Oh God.
When you're sitting like that and you're putting that much effort into just the way you're sitting, how could you possibly come up with anything witty to say? All your effort is going into trying to look good for the cameras. Even at that age, I kind of saw that there's no, this is insane.
Yeah,
this is insanity. But, my song, Who's Gonna Tell the Wolf She's Not a Dog, it's kind of about that, actually. Because you know what? You can't train me. I'm not a dog. You can't just tell me what to do. In the end, I'm a wolf, and you need to have a certain measure of respect and even fear when it comes to me.
I love it. And this is the world premiere of it on our show, isn't it?
Yes, and it's such a privilege to be on this show. I've listened to this so much and all the amazing guests that you've had on. I just love this show, so it's really my privilege to be able to play this song here for the first time.
Thank you. It's a hell of a song, I do have to say. Who's going to tell the wolf she's not a dog? Janita.
I used to do tricks, I used to run after stakes, I used to play ball with all you praise, I used to lay down and die, I used to lay down and die, I used to call you master, my collar boy your name, you used to own my body, you used to own my brain, I used to lay down and die, I used to lay down and die, but who's gonna tell the wolf she's not a dog? I was so well trained, housebroken and tame. I'd even fetch my leash so you parade me around the streets. I used to lay down and die, I used to lay down and die, but who's gonna tell the wolf she's not a dog? She's not a dog. But you always knew. Didn't you, my dear? You always knew. Didn't you, my dear? I call no one master, I wear my own name, I own my body, I own my own brain, I used to lay down and die, I used to lay down and die, but who's gonna tell the wolf she's not a dog? Yeah. But who's gonna tell
was amazing, that song. I mean,
Thank you.
the lyrics are just, I used to call you master, my collar bore your name, you used to own my body, you used to own my brain. And then it comes through, though, it's, I call no one master, I wear my own name, I own my body, I own my brain. It's like a feminist anthem, but it's not one of those feminist anthems where you bang the tambourine and it's like, everybody to the barricade, sister, sister. It's really, it's real art. So,
Well, thank you.
and I know also you've been doing work on artist rights, haven't you? In the middle of making this record?
Yes, I have. I've been working on this grassroots movement, I Respect Music, hashtag I Respect Music. You can find it on Twitter. And it's been thrilling. We've gone to a number of congressional offices, and I've had the opportunity to speak with congressmen and women about artists' rights issues and trying to get artists paid for radio play here in the States. So it's been thrilling. I mean, I've learned so much from the process.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a very good plan. So remember, I really recommend that you listen to this so that the top of your head can come off very happily with an aesthetic as well as a political experience, the whole bag. On the 31st of this month is the record release, but you can pre-order it now at itunes.com/Janita with a J. The show, if you're in New York City or environs, is on the 26th of March at Webster Hall, and you can find out more about this Brooklyn-based artist at Janita with a J, janita.com. So thank you for Didn't You, My Dear, the title of the record, and for the album itself, and for the artist that you have become. It's a real,
Thank you so much, Robin.
real gift. And thanks for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live.
Oh, so lovely. Thank you so much, Robin.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Here's a fun one. In an article in the New York Times written by Chris Buckley, we learned that the Chinese Communist Party leaders are very upset that the Dalai Lama might not have an afterlife. And they were worried enough that this week Chinese officials repeatedly warned that he must reincarnate, and on their terms. You see, he's 79, about to turn 80, and there's a lot of tension over what will happen when he dies, particularly over who decides who will succeed him. And Chinese officials have argued that the communist government is the proper guardian of the Dalai Lama's succession through this intricate process of reincarnation that has involved lamas and senior monks and visiting a sacred lake and divining dreams and so forth. So the party functionaries were absolutely freaked out by his, and he of course is in exile in India, by his recent speculation that he might end his spiritual lineage and just not reincarnate. That, of course, would confound the Chinese government's plans to engineer a succession that they would want that would produce a putative 15th Dalai Lama who accepts China's presence and policies in Tibet. So one Communist Party official announced in the website of People's Daily, which is the party's main newspaper, the following quote: "Decision-making power over the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama and over the end or survival of this lineage resides in the central government of China," he said. You know, in religious terms, he added, this is a betrayal of the succession of Dalai Lamas in Tibetan Buddhism. The 14th Dalai Lama, the current one, has taken an extremely frivolous and disrespectful attitude toward this issue. Where in the world, he went on, is there anyone else who takes such a frivolous attitude toward his own succession? This is particularly hilarious because, of course, the official belief of the and stand of the Chinese Communist Party is a commitment to atheism, and the tactic which the Dalai Lama is using is one of the cleverest organizing tools I have ever encountered. You know, of course, he's still revered in Tibet, even though it's been half a century since he fled into exile. And he is using his clout mainly to nullify the selection process. So China faces the prospect of continuing, in fact, escalating discontent after his death. It's like a last act of defiance after he turns up his toes. And he said himself, whether the institution of the Dalai Lama should continue or not is up to the Tibetan people. He said in an interview with the BBC, he went on to say, there is no guarantee that some stupid Dalai Lama won't come next who will disgrace himself or herself. That would be very sad. So much better that a centuries-old tradition should cease at the time of a quite popular Dalai Lama, which he's referring to himself. A little egotism there, but probably well earned. And doubtless he closed with his notorious giggle. I certainly find it worth a giggle. Hats off to the Dalai Lama. Time for another break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and in just a minute we will hear from a woman who has been called an icon now so many times that you'd think they want to press her on a wooden panel in a Russian Orthodox triptych. But nonetheless, she is warm flesh and blood and our own Gloria. Gloria Steinem will be here, and we'll both be back in just a minute.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again. I'm not going to spend a long introduction and waste time on this next guest, because if you don't know who she is, well, look it up. You ought to. My beloved sister, co-founder with Jane Fonda and myself of the Women's Media Center, the one and only Gloria Steinem. Dearest Gloria, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
It's always good when you stop by home, as it were.
It is home.
Well, today I want you to please share with the listeners to WMC Live what donor direct action is. I confess that I know, because you and I are both on the steering committee, but I would love you to explain in your own words, because it was your idea to begin with, when it was sort of hatched under the umbrella of, that's a mixed metaphor, under the umbrella of Equality Now, and before it came to nest at the Sisterhood is Global Institute. So tell how it came to be.
I'm very grateful that Jessica Newworth, who is the head of Donor Direct Action, gave it such a good name, because it says exactly what it is. It allows donors in this and other countries to give directly to groups on the ground, women's groups, self-help groups, crucial groups on the ground in a wide variety of countries, by using the linkage of the web to tell the story. So there is a direct connection to those groups and a clear understanding of exactly what those groups need and what would help. It eliminates the middle process of grant proposals, of staff, of distance in general, that tends to make the real individual needs of the groups obscure or difficult to understand, or covered by all kinds of other categories, and also that raises the cost of helping those groups by having an overhead.
Right.
So you know,
and it gives a tax deduction to U.S. donors
yes,
as well.
It has exactly the same. It's a 501c3, thanks to Sisterhood is Global, and it has all the advantages of giving without the extra money, trouble, distance, and depersonalization, really, that has come with foundations. It was all the form we had, but now we have a choice. Now we can do it directly.
So you came up with this bright idea among your many bright ideas. And what was there a particular incident that inspired it, or?
Yes. There are many incidents. I mean, some of them are not such good incidents because I see very big foundations deciding what the cure is from above and imposing it below.
Yeah.
So but not to give negative examples, which we can all think of, but there are many positive examples, and the one that comes to mind is that after a meeting, which was also organized by Equality Now, which was, of course, the parent of Donor Direct Action, a meeting on sex trafficking, in Lusaka in Zambia. I went to see friends who live along the Zambezi River who created a meeting with village women who were there because there were a couple of women who had gone to Lusaka because they needed money, been prostituted, and disappeared totally into trafficking. No one knew what happened to them. So sitting with these 15 or so women, I was trying to ask what would keep that from happening. And they explained that they grow maize and that when the maize got high enough to be near harvest, the elephants came in and ate the maize. And, of course, we don't want the elephants to be killed because of that. And the old systems of scaring the elephants away were no longer working. So they would destroy the crop. So I said, well, what would fix that? And they said an electrified fence.
Right.
So, I raised a few $1,000s. It didn't cost much to make an electrified fence. They worked very hard clearing by hand acres and acres of land. The fence was constructed. And when I went back the next year, there'd been a bumper crop of maize. The women had enough for food security for themselves and their families, and enough to sell in order to pay the school fees for their kids.
Yeah.
So they were singing songs to the maize, doing dances to the maize. I discovered where the bump came from, I'm sure, because it's those listeners who might remember a disco dance called the bump, because we were all dancing under the trees to the maize, and it was exactly that dance. But if you had asked me, or anyone, I think, what is the cure for sex trafficking for these women, I would not have said an electrified fence.
Right.
So only the people who are experiencing the problem understand what the solution for the problem is.
Yes. Yeah.
And that means being small. It means listening. It means listening. It means a direct connection with those groups, and that's what Donor Direct Action can do.
Yeah, it is an amazing idea and a very effective one too. And to me, it's also so crucial, not only for the funding, but for all the other things DDA does as well, which is network those voices which are not heard and which do know what they need, to bringing representatives of those groups to the United States, to meet with the UN, to meet with Congress, to meet with the board of the New York Times, to meet with press, and bringing donors one-on-one to meet with them.
For those donors who have time and interest, it provides an immersion, an introduction. I mean, we took a group of donors to India, for instance, and there's no substitute, of course, for being in Sonagachi, which is one of the biggest, perhaps the biggest brothel in the world, and a site of massive sex trafficking, including of children. There's no substitute for actually seeing it.
No.
And for those donors who want to do that, Donor Direct Action arranges small groups and trips.
Yes, and we should say also that although we've been talking about sex trafficking, that's not the only issue. It on the website, which is donordirectaction.org, or if you Google DDA, there are many different issues: female genital mutilation, economic issues. It's broken down by region, by country, by group, by issue. And at Sisterhood is Global Institute, we're so proud to receive it now that it's fledged its wings, if that's a verb.
I hope that your listeners know that Sisterhood is Global, both anthology and organization and so on, were pioneers of this kind of global connection. I mean, it really didn't exist before that. Now there are many organizations that are globalized and dispersing power in that way. But without I still, when I travel, look at the treatments of country-by-country information that you did all those years ago, because it's the one place where you can get a sense of background of the history of the female half of the country.
Well, I wish they were more changed in the intervening years, but for good or ill, mostly ill, they are deplorably the same.
Well, the history is still there.
Yeah, the history is there, and
Right.
many of the statistics hold up. And the Institute this June will turn 30 years old. Welcoming Donor Direct Action as our newest project is a point of absolute delight and pride. And that you come with it, even if you're already there, which has you being a little schizophrenic, but never mind. You have to be to do all the things you do, is a bargain, a gain into the bargain. So I love you a lot. Take care of yourself. I know you're doing lots and lots of other things. Anything in particular you want to share?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm sitting here writing to deadlines. I think, life is one long sophomore year.
Well, here's the thing. Then at least you have munchies.
Yes. Oh, yes. Definitely. Right.
Because if it's sophomore year, you have to have lots of munchies.
Right.
All right, darling. Stay warm in this winter cold. I love you lots, and we'll talk soon.
I love you, and thank you. Thank you for being the source.
Oh,
as you continue to be now on the radio.
Oh, fiddle-dee-dee, as they say.
Okay.
Take care, sweetheart. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Time for one last pause here at Women's Media Center Live, where I am, you guessed it, Robin Morgan. And when we return, you guessed that too, we'll be returning to some fighting words, you bet.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again with some fighting words. Lately, I've been thinking about all those white people out there who are not racist. You know, the guys from the fraternity on the bus in Oklahoma singing their song, and the 78-year-old white woman with them singing right along, their fraternity mother. The cops in Staten Island or Michigan or certainly Ferguson. Nobody is racist anymore. There are, of course, as they put it, isolated incidents and some bad apples. So let's look at that, because the folks who very carefully say, quote, the N-word, unquote, and think that that makes them not a racist, are blaming a collection of assembled consonants and vowels instead of a system that has infused that word with the power of hatred, a system that is systemic racism. So it isn't just a word, it's the attitude behind the word and the system that creates the attitude. So let me start with where I sit. I'm a racist. I'm a European American who grew up in a European American focused culture that was racist. There's no way I can not be a racist. I had a well-meaning, loving aunt who used the phrase free, white, and 21. I'm free, white, and 21 and can do what I want without thinking about the implications of that. I had a loving mother, a white woman also, who used the phrase, quote, nigger rich, unquote. To whenever I would say, oh, a new pair of shoes, I want to wear them right away. That's what she would say. They did not think that was racist. On the contrary, they raised me, they thought, to be not racist. But there's no way that you can grow up as particularly a member of the power group, in this case European Americans, in a culture that reflects that power and is racist and not be racist. This can show itself in a million different ways that we don't even have time to list, but ranging all the way from patronizing obsequiousness, conscious or unconscious, to expecting tutorials on what it's really like. Tell me, teach me about your suffering, and other obnoxious, well-meant gestures. I would say that this also affects, in terms of racism, their own racism, African Americans and Asian Americans and Latinos. But particularly if you're a member of the power group, there's no escaping it. That's not the point, to deny it. The point is not to become color blind, which doesn't exist, but to become color literate, for God's sake. There's a meme that circulates online about me that somebody has put together with a picture of me from today with a quote from me from the late 1960s, and it goes something like, "My white skin disgusts me, my passport disgusts me. If I could peel myself inside out and become one of the oppressed instead of the oppressor, I would give anything to do that." Some words to that effect. First of all, it was a long time ago, and my own body no longer disgusts me because I wasn't a feminist then, and it's taken 40 years of feminism to make me understand that my own flesh is sacred in its own way, even though now it's a bit saggy and liver spotted with age. But at the time, I understand the passion. I didn't know I already was one of the oppressed. Nonetheless, the haters have picked up this meme, made this meme, and then, of course, responded to it all over the internet with the expected kinds of responses. "We'll help you peel yourself inside out. We'd like to flay you. We'd like to hang you from you get the point." And the interesting thing is that what I find is that although I would frame the phrase differently now, and the reason that they're so upset by the phrase is that it is a European American calling their bluff. And if we each just stood up in front of the mirror each morning and acknowledged that we are racists and got angry, let ourselves get furious about a system that has done that to us, that would be an interesting place to start. So if you're a European American, try looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, "I'm a racist." But then comes the most important question, and what am I going to do about that? And that's it for today. Join us next week when my guests will include the wife of an ambassador to the United Nations who has courageously chosen to work on a controversial, non-diplomatic subject that affects women. Also, we'll be joined by a member of Physicians for Human Rights and by an activist who has positioned violence against women issues as an international health epidemic. This program is syndicated, but if you cannot find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com. You can get the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes. And we're at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. Senior Producer, Crystal Williams-Chancellor. And our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host, and here's this week's last straw. Saudi Arabia has recalled its ambassador to Sweden after a diplomatic row between the two countries when the foreign minister of Sweden, Margot Wallström, called Saudi Arabia a dictatorship and denounced its treatment of women, condemned its punishment by lashes as medieval, and said that in terms of democratic development, equality, and women's rights, it was impossible to keep the various deals of cooperation on defense. So Saudi Arabia has recalled its ambassador in protest. It has taken its oil marbles and gone home, refusing to play. Do join us next week right here on Women's Media Center, live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.